Welcome to the Newsome MMA Betting Podcast, sponsored by CBD Life UK. I'm your host as always, Newsome, and tonight I'm going to be breaking down UFC on Fox 30 from Calgary, Canada. It's honestly a really great fight night, this, and probably one of the best 2018 in my opinion, so I'm really looking forward to breaking this one down. So without wasting any time, let's break down UFC Calgary from bottom to top. And in your first fight of the evening, we've got Devin Powell against Alvaro Herrera. Now, this is a fight with two guys that, honestly, I'm really not too impressed with at all. They can both produce some fun fights, but in regards to, a skill set and how high the ceiling is in mixed martial arts and UFC, I'm just not seeing it really. And it's a tough one to break down because of that. You've got Devin Powell that's 8-3. He's never been finished, so all his losses have come by decision. And then you've got Alvaro Herrera that's 9-5, which isn't a great record for the UFC either. They're both coming off two back-to-back losses. When you look at those, you've got Herrera that's lost to Luque and he's lost to Rinaldi. And then you've got Devin Powell that's lost to Drakkar Klose and Darrell Horcher. So, both I suppose, not really bad losses for either side. I think Alvaro Herrera's losses were probably a little tougher. But having said that, in the Jordan Rinaldi fight, he got choked by a Von Flue choke, a submission that I don't think anybody in professional mixed martial arts should be getting subbed by. It tends to be caused by the guillotine being held too long, and then especially when the fighter on top passes over to half and then into side control, and that guillotine still being held on, that's where you sort of get submitted by the Von Flue choke most of the time, and that's exactly what happened in the Rinaldi fight. So, just a bit of poor IQ from Alvaro Herrera. Now, without going too much into it, I think that, I'm going to be picking Devin Powell to win. It's not a confident pick at all. I would completely stay away from it from a betting perspective. The only reason I'm picking Devin Powell is I think he could be quicker. He tends to be a bit scrappier, so when he gets inside the pocket, I just think that he might get the better of the exchanges. From memory, I think that Herrera might be the slightly bigger guy in regards to thickness. So if that's the case, maybe Devin Powell has to watch out from tying up and clinching on the fence and really wearing him down. But ultimately, I'm going to pick Devin Powell to win by decision. Then in the next fight, we've got Randa Markos against Nina Ansaroff. Now, this is a fight that I was thinking about betting, but ultimately I have been put off by it. And the pick's Randa Markos. I think she'll get the nod here. Now, the reason I haven't bet her is she tends to win a lot of her fights by grinding. She is, there's not many women grinders in the UFC that just look to press against the cage, trip to the mat, and lay and pray like you get with some of the male fighters, like take Fabinski for example last week. You don't really get that too much with the women's division, but she is one of those fighters. But I think the problem she's going to have against Nina Ansaroff is I just think Ansaroff's a bit bigger, a bit tougher, and slightly better than Randa Markos' previous opponents, and that's sort of what's put me off. I could genuinely see maybe a split decision here going either way, probably edging towards Markos if it is that close. With it being in Canada, she has had the nod before in fights where I didn't think she won. For example, the Carla Esparza fight, I thought Esparza won that. I was really surprised for Markos to get the nod. So yeah, ultimately I haven't bet it because I think it's going to be that close. It could potentially be a split decision. But ultimately, I do think it might play out the way that I thought it would. It's just I'm not as confident as what I was before I watched tape. So I'm going to be picking Randa Markos to win by decision. Like I say, I think she will get maybe 1 round, maybe 2 rounds of a couple of takedowns and a bit of top control, or just wasting a bit of time against the cage. But Ansaroff's definitely going to have a moments in this fight. She's not going to get walked over. She is the better striker. I do think she's going to be tougher and maybe a little bit stronger as well. So she will 100% have a moments in the fight. I just think Markos will do just enough to take the fight. And so yeah, Markos to win by decision. Then in the next fight, we've got a really, really interesting fight. We've got Dustin Ortiz against Mattheus Nicolau. And I think the fight's a lot closer than the line suggests. I've seen Ortiz sort of this fight week at like the plus 200 mark, which I don't think he should be a 2-1 dog in pretty much any fight outside of the top 3 in this division. Again, the definition of a grinder. He's got good takedowns. His fight IQ is not bad either. The last time he lost was against Brandon Moreno. He got submitted, but he was rocked before that. How much consciousness he actually had right before Moreno locked in that rear naked choke, we don't know. Other notable losses: Jose Formiga, Wilson Hayes, Joseph Benavidez, John Maraghi. This guy's only lost to the best in the division, or to the top guys in the division, shall we say. And he's also got good wins as well. Alejandro Pantoja, in my opinion, I don't think he won that fight, but it wasn't a robbery, it was just really close. Hector Sandoval, he broke the record, I think, of the quickest time a flyweight has knocked his opponent out. Zach Makovsky was a good win at the time as well. So he's got some good wins, and I do like him in this spot. Now, looking over at Nicolau again, last 2 wins, Louis Smoker. Smoker subsequently got cut after that fight. He was fringing it anyway, and he really did get dominated in that fight, dropped a few times. Nicolau hits hard, and he's also got a decent wrestling and top game as well. And then he won a split decision against John Moraga. Again, a really good win. So it's a tough fight to call, and like I say, I think the line should be a lot closer. I think it should be a lot closer to a pick 'em, if I'm being honest. I'm actually going to pick Dustin Ortiz though, and it's not a bet. I've already locked in my strategy for this week. I know exactly what I'm doing, but honestly, I think that if you are the type of person that likes to look for dogs and likes to look for that value play, I genuinely think Ortiz isn't a bad shout in this fight, because the one thing you're going to get with him is that pressure, that grind, those takedowns, and he does all that really well, and you see it in all of his fights. He always looks that way, and he always looks pretty good as well. Well, it looks pretty good if you've got a bet on him anyway. Sometimes, if you've not got a bet on him, I get that people can get a bit tiresome of the takedowns and stuff, but if you've got money on the guy, you'll love what he does. And yeah, I think he's going to win by decision. A lot of people disagree with me. I know a lot of people are high on Nicolau, and I think he's a good fighter as well. And listen, he does hit hard. All it takes is that one shot on the button, on the chin of Dustin Ortiz, and he could go out and could go to sleep. But I think that Ortiz will know that as well. I think he'll fight smart. I think he'll grind his way to a decision with takedowns and top control, which moves us straight into the next fight. It's actually my first bet of the night as well. We've got Alexis Davis against Katlyn Chookagian. Now, weirdly, you might think, Newsome, why are you betting on this fight? But I always say your fighter doesn't have to be great. They can only be better than their opponent, and that's all it is for me. And when I was watching tape, I was really impressed with Katlyn Chookagian. I didn't realise, I didn't know her game too much. I've seen her watching UFC cards and things like that, but I've never actually sat down and really analysed her and broke her fights down until this fight. And she's a really, really good fighter. She's got good kicks. She's got good movement on the feet. She trains with Mark Henry now, who's done wonders on her striking game. She's using the kicks to manage distance well, which is also important, and it's going to be equally important against Alexis Davis, because Alexis Davis, her game is, she's a black belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. She needs to fight on the mat. She is good in top control, throwing submissions from bottom as well when she gets taken down. So she is comfortable, I feel, wherever she goes on the mat, and I think her path to victory in this fight is to get a hold of Chookagian, try and take her down and try and spend some time on top, or if she doesn't take her down, just waste time on the clock against the cage and really grind her. But I'm really confident that Chookagian can keep distance in this fight. Like I say, she throws good front kicks, she throws good side kicks, her movement's good, she fights comfortable moving backwards, and then she'll fight comfortable going forwards. She angles out well, she never allows herself to be backed up against the cage. She pops a jab out nicely as well. She's got a good 1-2. And I think when you really start to analyse the two women from a striking perspective, the difference in skill level is absolutely astronomical here. Chookagian is head and shoulders above where Davis is. Now, the other thing that I like about this fight as well is Davis does like to spend time trading on the feet rather than constantly looking for the takedown, which, you know, it's not a completely awful tactic, because if she was constantly just spamming, trying to clinch up and trying to get the fight to the mat, she becomes predictable. So she has to have that level of striking volume to just stay competitive on the feet and to try and surprise the takedown. But honestly, when she comes in, I feel she's quite sloppy. I don't feel that her striking's that crisp at all. I think her head movement, you know, is not there really. Her head's constantly staying on the centre line, where that's going to be easy for Chookagian to pop a jab out, to hit it with the 1-2s. And it's also going to make it easier to really get a striking game and really get a distance and a movement on point as well. Ultimately, I think what's going to happen in this fight, I do see Davis maybe getting a takedown at some point in the fight, but the other thing to mention as well is Chookagian's got a brown belt under Renzo Gracie. You know, that's a legit brown belt. You know, I know it's not a black belt, but compared to some of the black belts that are given out in the UFC and in MMA, it's probably as good as. And you saw in the Irene Aldana fight that she was actually trying to engage and get Aldana onto the mat. So you can appreciate that she's going to be comfortable there. I don't think I'd like it too much if Alexis Davis was on top, but I like Chookagian to be able to get her underhooks, get a whizzer in, spin her on the cage, break, and then go again in the striking. So yeah, ultimately I think Davis may get a takedown at some point, but it might only be momentarily, and I don't think too many more will come after that. I have heard a few people say that with it being in Canada, the judges could be quite dodgy, and if it's a close fight, then Davis could take a split, and I actually agree with that. The thing is with me here, I don't think the fight is going to be close enough for Chookagian to get robbed. I think that it's going to be decisive enough that a robbery cannot happen, and ultimately, I actually don't think you can take potential robberies into consideration when making a bet, because if that was the case, every time you'd bet a fighter that is likely to go to a decision, or heavily lean a fighter that was likely to go to a decision, you would just not bet it. You would never touch it, just in case, you know, you feel a robbery might happen. A robbery could happen at any point in mixed martial arts. It's part of the sport. If it happens to you, it's shit. You've got to take that L. You know, it's not great, but you know, your read was right. At least you can take some solace from that, and you'll just get it back you'll make that money back in another event. So it's not something I take too much into consideration. But like I say, I think Chookagian is going to be at range the majority of the fight. I think she's going to pepper the legs. I think she's going to pepper the body and the head with kicks. I think she's just going to be in and out with her hands when she needs to, when Davis is coming forward, because kicking's obviously not as easy when you're being pressured, so she'll have to use her hands, you know, throwing a jab out there or a 1-2 and angling off and then getting back to a kicking game. I actually think she's going to beat Davis up. I don't think she'll stop her. I wouldn't go that far, but I think she's going to win a very comfortable 30-27, and you know, if the judging is off on the night, maybe a 29-28 if the judges are feeling that way. But I honestly think it's going to be a dominant decision. I've got 3 units on Katlyn Chookagian. I got that at -137. So I've got Chookagian to win by a dominant decision. And in the next fight, we've got John Makdessi versus Ross Pearson. Now, I've been a bit back and forth on this fight. It's an interesting one. Ultimately, I'm going to side with Ross Pearson. I don't think he's as completely shot as what some people think. He's definitely on the decline. He's definitely on his way out. He's definitely coming towards the end of his career. But I do think that he's still got something to offer, and we saw that in his last win, his last fight, which he won against Mizoto Hirota. He looked good in that fight. He used his boxing well, his movement, his head movement, everything just seemed to be on point with him. You know, we didn't light the world up, but you know, he did a good job in there. And you look at his last well, he was on a 4-fight losing streak before that. But again, you sort of maybe have to take that with a pinch of salt. You look at those, Dan Hooker, absolutely legit. Stevie Ray, always tricky to fight. Jorge Masvidal, I don't even think I need to mention anything about that loss. And you've got Will Brooks as well. And although Will Brooks has been cut from the UFC after a few too many losses, you know, I don't think he was an absolutely terrible fighter. He still did a decent job. And it just so happened Ross Pearson was on that end of the decision at that time. So I don't think Pearson's done by any stretch of the imagination. Now, if you look at Makdessi again, he's a fighter that looked great in his last fight against Abel Trujillo. Trujillo really didn't do too much apart from trying to spam takedowns to get the fight to the mat. Makdessi's tough to take down, man. You saw that. I actually, when I broke this down, I even said, you know, when Trujillo fought Makdessi, I was going to bet Trujillo until I watched Alan Patrick try and take Makdessi down, and Patrick's a great takedown artist, and listen, Makdessi does not get taken down very easily, and that also showed in the Trujillo fight as well. And then the fight before that, he lost to Lando Venata with that crazy spinning wheel kick to the temple, which just completely and utterly sparked him out. So it's an interesting fight. I think ultimately it's going to stay on the feet. I think that Makdessi's going to try and pepper Ross Pearson's legs, maybe try and slow him down a bit. But I think over the course of the 3 rounds, I just think Pearson's going to out-volume him. I think he's just going to land the slightly better shots. I think he's going to do just enough to get the win. But having said that, I wouldn't also be surprised if Makdessi did just enough as well, and we really saw the decline in Ross Pearson. But like I say, I'm not confident. It's not a bet, so it's only a pick. It's an educational pick, and I'm going Ross Pearson to win by decision. And in the next fight, and it's my next bet, we've got Gadzhimurad Antigulov against Ion Cutelaba. Now, this fight is quite unfortunate for me anyway, and the reason why is because I really like both guys. I've cashed on both guys a few times, so I like them for that reason, but I also love the fighting styles as well. So let's just start with Ion Cutelaba. Cutelaba is a powerhouse. He's got, like I've said, solid power in his hands. He's got good movement. He's quite quick with that as well. He's not bad when he can get on top of his opponent. We haven't seen it too much in the UFC, but when I taped him sort of on his debut and in his second fight in the UFC, I obviously ran into regional tape, so I've definitely seen him on top, and he's got a good smothering top game. It's not his forte though. He's primarily a striker. Then we look at Gadzhimurad Antigulov, and if you don't know, this guy is a Dagestani-born Russian, and I say this all the time, you know, if you had £1 for every time I said it, I'm sure you'd be absolutely loaded and you could quit your job, but man, I love the Dagestani-born Russians like they were my own brothers and sisters. They're just great. They're coming in there with takedowns, with pressure, with great top control, submissions, ground and pound. They just seem to have the entire package, and I just love them. And Antigulov is absolutely no different. He's got a Master of Sports in freestyle wrestling, which is huge. Again, just right down my street of the type of fighter that I like to bet. And as you can tell from the way I'm talking, I'll break it now. He is my bet for this one. I've got 3 units on Antigulov at -110. A bit of a weird line thrown out by Betfair at this time. But yeah, great line on him. Really confident. He doesn't waste any time on the feet. And I said the similar thing as what I said last week with Fabinski. No time is wasted on the feet with Antigulov. If you look at his strikes thrown per minute, it's something like 0.5, and his absorbed strikes is like 0.8. You know, these are the sort of figures that really show me that he knows what he needs to do. He knows where he's best, and he doesn't try and be somebody that he's not. So you saw that in his last fight against, I think it was Joachim Christensen. He went out there and, you know, he didn't spend any time striking at all. Just threw a couple of shots out and then bang, hit that single leg takedown. The single leg is actually is actually a weapon that he possesses. That he's just he executes it to perfection. You can tell that's what he works on in training. You can tell that's what he drills constantly. Once he gets that single leg, you go into the mat, and then once you're on the mat, you're gonna get submitted. The dude's got 15 submissions out of 20 wins. All but 2 of those have come in the first round. If you look at his takedown stats, it's sort of 1 takedown per fight because that's all he needs. He's not one of these fighters where he'll take somebody down, they'll get up, and then he'll have to work again, and they'll get up. You know, his top game is so good. His grappling is world class. His submission game is world class. He'll work that submission. He'll work the submission attempts until he gets it. And like I say, I just love everything about his game. And then you look at how he sets the takedowns up. So just taking a step back here, you know, he has got crisp boxing. This isn't world class. It isn't something that will set the world on fire, but it's crisp. It's good enough to hang with pretty much any fighter in the division. But then he starts winging these bombs, the overhand bombs. He really starts throwing them now. Some people will see that as sloppy. And if you listen back to my breakdown of Mads Burnell and Arnold Allen back in the Liverpool card, I said the same thing about Mads Burnell. These bombs aren't thrown to put somebody out. That's not the main purpose of these bombs. If they hit somebody's chin and puts them out, absolutely, it looks amazing, that's great, they've got the win. But these bombs are being thrown to disguise and to set up the takedown. So as soon as the overhands start coming in, as soon as the big wide shots coming into the face, the opponent naturally will put the guard up, they'll put their hands up because they don't want to be hit by these bombs. Once the hands are up, the level changes there. You can level change, you can grab your single, grab your double, grab your body lock, however you want to try and take that fighter down. Once the hands are up by the side of the face, that's what they need. That's what the bombs are there for. And I think that's exactly what's going to happen here. Antigulov does have to be careful though coming in against Ion Cutelaba because he does hit hard, he does hit fast, and if he does connect with Antigulov, he will get knocked out just like anybody else would in that division. Now, what sort of makes me a little bit... There's a couple of things that make me a little bit more confident in Antigulov here. The first one is based on Cutelaba. He's coming off the USADA suspension. Now, I've heard different reports. I've heard that it was quite a tame suspension. I've heard that the doping was quite serious. So it is going to be interesting seeing what he looks like, because if the doping was serious, the 2 things that Cutelaba had was power, 3 things: power, explosiveness, and an absolute iron chin. Now, if the doping was that bad and he does come back looking a different fighter, then all those 3 things could be affected by the change in his body. And I don't think it matters too much here, but it's certainly a red flag. Definitely a red flag on Cutelaba. The reason I don't think it matters too much is because I don't think Antigulov is going to test the chin of Cutelaba, nor do I think he's going to stay on the feet long enough to see if his power's still there either. So regardless, I don't think that comes into play, but it is just something to think about nonetheless. Now, the other reason I'm really confident in in Antigulov is anybody that's been watching my social media and talking to me over the past week. I've been in Hamburg. I spent a lot of time with Alexander Rakic over in Hamburg, who trains at American Top Team, and one of his training partners for his camp and for Antigulov's camp, they both had each other. So Rakic and Antigulov were doing the rounds on the mat. From what I was told by Alex, is that they were really competitive with each other. They were really pushing each other hard. And also from what you saw with Rakic and how he approached the Ledet fight and how he won that fight, you know, he spent a lot of time on the mat, grappling, ground and pound. So they've obviously spent a lot of time on the mat, and I think that aids both the guys, because Rakic used that as a plan B. I can tell you that right now. You know, he had a plan A, he had a plan B, he had a plan C. I knew he was going to win that fight. But for Antigulov, this is his plan A. This is what he wants to do. And he's been working and training with an absolute monster and a cardio machine like Rakic all through camp. You know, he's going to be in good shape, you know. So, you know, I'm really confident in Antigulov here, and I think he's going to get a first round submission. I don't think he's going to waste any time. You know, he didn't waste any time striking with Christensen. You know, he's not going to spend any time striking with Cutelaba, who's a no knockout artist. It's just, he's going to be even more wary than what he has been in previous fights. So I see Antigulov coming out. I see him throwing a couple of bombs very, very early, level changing, grabbing the single leg, taking Cutelaba to the mat. If you look back at Cutelaba, when he last got taken down, it was against Misha Shirkinov. Once Shirkinov got him down, he made it look easy. He transitioned straight into an arm triangle submission and tapped him quite quickly and quite easily. A few people have said, he's going to look a bit different, but I'm still yet to see proof of that, because that was the last time he was taken down, I believe, and the last time he was worked on by a good grappler. So I think Antigulov's going to throw a couple of bombs, level change, take that single leg, take Cutelaba down, and I think he's going to lock in that first round submission. Then in the next fight of the night, we've got Hakeem Dawodu against Austin Arnett. Now, I don't really know too much about Austin Arnett. He's coming off two fight losing streak to Brandon Davis and Corey Sandhagen. The Corey Sandhagen fight was actually a pretty good fight. Actually, it was really exciting. But I didn't see anything in that fight that I think he's going to, really trouble Dawodu with. So Dawodu's coming off a loss himself against Danny Henry on his UFC debut. He was a huge favourite in that fight, like minus 350, minus 400 range. And Danny Henry came out, starched him in round one, and got the guillotine choke to finish him off. I don't think you can put too much stock into that. I think Dawodu will have a lot more time and a lot more opportunity in this coming fight to really express his striking. He's flashy. He's got spin elbows. He's got spin kick. He does a lot of the flashy stuff that's really easy on the eye. And I think that if I'm right and he has got the time and the opportunities in this fight to get his own game going, I think Austin Arnett's in for a very long night. If I was Arnett, I would close the distance immediately, try and make it ugly, try and grind, try and make it scrappy, just do something that doesn't give Dawodu the distance and the time to really get his game going. But ultimately, I do think Dawodu will do that. I do think he'll get his own way in this fight, and I think at some point in the fight he'll knock Austin Arnett out, whether it be an accumulation of shots or just that one flashy shot that connects. So I've got Hakeem Dawodu to win by knockout. And in the next fight, we've got another Dagestani-born Russian. We've got Islam Makhachev against Kajan Johnson. Now, it's a fight that obviously, I would absolutely love to bet myself. I can't do it though. Islam Makhachev, I think, let's double check the line now. He's currently at minus 730. Wow, I didn't realise it got that high. So absolutely can't bet a fighter in the minus 700 mark, or minus 6 or minus 500. So he's miles past what I'd like to bet a fighter at. And you know what? He's actually at that line for a reason, I think he's going to absolutely steamroll Kajan Johnson. Although, to be honest with you, for the last 4 fights, we've probably been saying the same. Kajan Johnson somehow managed to rack up, not somehow, he's managed to rack up a 4-fight winning streak by really good performances. One of them cost me money against Adriano Martins. Shocked, and I think a lot of people are shocked that he knocked Martins out as well. So it's the underdog that keeps winning, but I think this is where it ends. Makhachev, he's got decent striking. He knocked out Tibau with pretty much his first punch in his last fight. He, like I say, Dagestani-born Russian, so he's got the Master of Sports in Combat Sambo. He's wrestling. He's on point. Trains with Habib Nurmagomedov. His coach is Nurmagomedov's dad. I'm not even going to try and pronounce his dad's first name. So, yeah, I don't know if he finishes Johnson though. He's tricky. He's tricky to catch. I think if he does finish him, it'll be a submission. Just a slip up on the mat maybe. But ultimately, I'm going to go with Makhachev to win by decision. Then in the next fight, we've got Jordan Meehan versus Alex Morono, and again, it's a really weird fight that I'm not totally sure who's going to win it. Both guys have looked not amazing as of late. They're both coming off wins, Excuse me. Alex Morono's coming off the win against Josh Burtman, fully expected to win that. He dropped him, guillotined him. I think that was Josh Bateman's last fight as well. Could be wrong about that, but I'm sure it was. And then we've got Meehan that beat Eric Silva, and Eric Silva's now being cut. I think he's fighting in LFA now. 3 losses before that though for Meehan: Belal Muhammad, Emil Mek, and Thiago Alves. You look back at them now and they're probably not bad losses, especially Thiago Alves because he was beating him before the body kick put him down. So it's a really tough one to pick. Ultimately, I'm not impressed with Meehan so much. I think that he had a great opportunity to put Eric Silva away, who was shown to have a very weak chin and was getting dropped a lot in his fights, and Meehan couldn't put him away. So I am going to side with Alex Morono here. I don't think he's that exciting, but what he does is he gets the job done in fights that, in the lower level fights where he should be getting the job done, you can sort of trust him in that aspect. I think if and when he starts fighting high level competition, unless he shows huge strides in his improvement, I do think you'll start seeing him get picked apart a little bit. But in this fight, I think that it's very close, and in these very close fights, I trust Morono to win a little bit more than what I trust Meehan. It's absolutely a no bet, and I wouldn't recommend anyone else to bet it either. But I do think Morono's going to get the win, and it'll probably be a decision. In the next fight, first fight in the main card, we've got Alexander Hernandez against Olivier Aubin-Mercier. Now, tough fight this, because Alexander Hernandez came in on short notice against Beneil Dariush and absolutely steamrolled him. I don't think anybody really expected that. Alexander Hernandez came out quick, he came out hard, he fucking starched Beneil Dariush brutally and then finished him on the mat. So impressive, and he actually got ranked from that fight. So from his debut, how he beat Beneil Dariush got him ranked. Some people disagree. I don't really mind. The rankings is pretty much an opinion-based system anyway, it seems. But man, he's exciting. He lit the cage up, and we're all excited to see him again. But it's a tough fight for him because Olivier Aubin-Mercier is a good fighter. He's got good IQ. He knows how to win. He knows where he needs to fight to win. He's a good wrestler. He's a good grinder, and I think that's the type of fighter that Alexander Hernandez will struggle against. Beneil Dariush is a notoriously slow starter. He does like to strike and tries to get his range, and he's great on the mat. But I think he's really fell in love with his striking, and that's where Hernandez could really take advantage there. But Olivier Aubin-Mercier, I think if he comes into this fight with a grind, clinch, and wrestling based game plan, I think he's just going to be too much for Hernandez. I think Hernandez will just get a bit of a reality check, and ultimately I think that's what's going to happen. Hernandez will come out hard and fast. I think he might be a bit overzealous, and I think that's where Aubin-Mercier will be able to tie him up, push him against the cage, and work that judo and those trips to the mat, and then really use his grappling to try and either get Hernandez out of there or just do enough to waste minutes on the clock and win those rounds. Ultimately, I see the latter happening, and my pick is Olivier Aubin-Mercier to win by decision. Then in the next fight, we've got Joanna Jedrzejczyk against Tecia Torres. I like Joanna Jedrzejczyk here. I think she gets the job done, but it's a tough one to pick, and even a tough one to bet, and I wouldn't recommend the bet. The reason why is, again, Joanna's a notoriously slow starter, but she always had that. She always had those championship rounds to really win the fight back, so she could lose maybe the first or second round, or maybe even both. But then when a fighters start to fade, she really flourishes late in the third, in the fourth, in the fifth. But she doesn't get that here. It's only a 3-round fight. Tecia Torres is a quick starter. She will go 3 rounds without a problem whatsoever, at full pace. I just think that Joanna might know, well, she will know obviously that it's not 5 rounds, but she'll be aware, because it's not 5 rounds, that she might have to start a bit quicker, knowing that she won't be able to claw the fight back in championship rounds. I think that we might see a little bit back to her best. She didn't look too bad in her last fight against the rematch against Rose. I think from a skill perspective, she is much better than Tecia Torres. But I think Tecia Torres may be a little bit harder to hit with her movement being so quick. She was doing a really good job against Jessica Andrade as well until Andrade finally started to get a hold of her and dump Tecia Torres on the mat. So, you know, she was doing a good job there. I think she can put in a performance against Joanna. There's a lot of red flags with Joanna though. You know, the weight cut's still an issue. She's still the same weight that she was struggling to make a while ago, and as well, especially in the first loss against Rose, where she lost a belt. So how is she going to look? How is she going to be mentally? You know, I don't think she was great mentally after that first loss. How is she going to be now after she had a second loss? I think she was claiming after that Rose fight that she should have got the nod. I think I agreed with that actually at the time, even though it was a close fight. So how is she going to look? You know, there's a lot of red flags around her, is what I'm trying to say. I am going to pick her to win by a decision, but it's one that I'm definitely staying away from the betting perspective. Next, we've got a really, really awesome fight, and I really wish this was 5 rounds, actually. We've got Jose Aldo against Jeremy Stephens. Now, the reason I wish it was 5... Well, I say I wish it was 5 rounds, I do, but it would change my pick, definitely. So it sounds like I'm about to favour one fighter by saying I really want them to win. That's not the case. I want this to be a good fight, and I want the winner to be the better man on the night. But I feel that over 5 rounds, Jeremy Stephens has the advantage. Over 3 rounds, Jose Aldo I'm struggling to speak here. Jose Aldo has the advantage. So I do think over 5 rounds, Jeremy Stephens would be able to land that one punch that puts Aldo away. But over 3 rounds, I'm not sure he does. I think Aldo can play a similar game to what he played against Frankie Edgar, moving backwards, making Stephens come forward, really frustrating Stephens. We saw that when Stephens fought Moicano. He does get really frustrated when fighters aren't engaging in a brawl and he's having to do the chasing, and then he eventually starts looking for that one punch KO rather than stringing combinations together and getting an accumulation of strikes in. So he can be frustrated, Jeremy Stephens, and I think that's what Aldo will do here. I think he'll find the back foot. Aldo will know he can't take a punch from Stephens because he will probably go out. And I think Aldo might win quite a comfortable decision, but the reason I can't bet him, and his line's good as well, you can get him at like -125, but there's 2 reasons I can't bet Jose Aldo in this fight. The first one is he's coming off 2 back-to-back wars against Max Holloway. How much has that damaged him? How much has that taken away from his durability? Who knows? It's a question that can't be answered till after this fight. So that's one reason I can't bet. And second of all, Stephens has got the one punch power. He's got the he's got that one attribute that can end somebody's night in the click of a finger. So to me, if I bet Jose Aldo, and knowing what I've just said, Stephens knocks him out, I'll just be devastated, because I'll be sat there thinking, well, I knew that was a huge path to victory, Stephens, and it is a 15-minute fight. You know, all it takes is one punch in 15 minutes. So yeah, I can't bet it for that reason, but my pick is Jose Aldo. I think he wins by a decision. Then the last fight and the main event of the evening, it's my 3rd bet of the night. We've got the rematch between Eddie Alvarez against Dustin Poirier, and the bet's Justin Poirier. I got the line nice and early a while ago. Got it at 2.5 units at -125. It's up at like -165, -170 now. I do think that's probably a little bit disrespectful to Eddie Alvarez. I think it's going to be closer than what the line suggests, but I do think Poirier wins this fight, and I do think it's his fight to win for sure. Now, looking back to the last fight, I bet on Poirier in that fight as well. Ended in controversial fashion, you know, Eddie Alvarez with the illegal knees and Herb Dean calling it a no contest. Personally, I think it should have been a disqualification. It wasn't just one knee, it was a couple. You know, I'm not saying he knew what he was doing. I'm not saying that Eddie Alvarez is a dirty fighter, because I actually don't believe that. But ultimately, it wasn't just one knee, it was a few knees that caused Poirier to have to quit. And, you know, for me, that's a disqualification. But the mistake Poirier made in that fight is he was doing really well. He was managing distance well. He was popping his jab out. He was moving in and out with nice 1-2s and body shots and leg kicks. He was putting it all together really nicely. He wasn't totally steamrolling Alvarez, but he was definitely winning the fight. Just really managing it perfectly. And then what happened was Poirier cracked him. He hit him hard with combination, sort of rocked Alvarez a bit. Alvarez stumbled back. Poirier put it on him, and then the mistake came next. Poirier absolutely put it on Alvarez. Combination, shot after shot after shot with combinations, trying to put him away. And, you know, credit to Alvarez. He at one point, Poirier slightly stood back. Alvarez tried to move off the cage. He was stumbling. He was nearly falling over. But the guy is a tough guy. And Poirier couldn't put him out. He was that tough. But what it did is when Alvarez recovered, because like I say, he's a tough guy, he's going to recover if you don't put him out. What happened was once he recovered, Poirier then, you know, not gassed himself out, but he definitely punched himself out for sure. He wasn't totally gassed, he still had energy. But what happened then is it allowed Alvarez to tie up with him, put him against the cage, try and take him down, and ultimately, in between, after Alvarez took him down, Poirier stood up. He was against the cage. That's why the knees was happening, why his hands were down. But Poirier cannot make that mistake again. He can't. But the thing is with Poirier, and you see it in his fights, when he makes a mistake, he'll rectify those mistakes either in his next fight or the fight after that at some point. American Top Team really do a good job with Poirier. I feel that it's coming into his element. He's coming into his prime. I think even though Eddie Alvarez is still a good fighter and he will still make this competitive for sure, I just don't think he's in his prime anymore. I'm not saying he's declining either, but he's not in the physical peak of his fighting career. Whereas I think Poirier is coming off 2 good wins against Anthony Pettis, who in the last fight proved he actually isn't shot, and he has still got a good game himself. Poirier demolished him, steamrolled through him, and then showed real heart against Justin Gaethje in his last fight. You know, his leg was torn to bits, he couldn't really walk that much. Went into the championship rounds, into the 4th round, and he still managed to get that knockout. You know, it was really impressive. Obviously, Alvarez coming off the knockout against Justin Gaethje as well, similar scenario. Justin Gaethje hit Alvarez's leg to the point where he could barely walk, and Alvarez got a pretty weird knockout in that fight. But I see the fight being relatively close until Poirier starts to come into his own. I just think it's Poirier's time. I know that's not great from an analytic point of view and breaking stuff down, but you know, momentum, especially with someone like Poirier, every time he wins, he keeps talking about the title. Yet he keeps on taking other fights to please, obviously, fans, and everybody else just wants to see him scrap, and he just loves fighting. That's what he wants to do. And this fight should have been rerun. It should have been rerun before Alvarez fought Gaethje. So it's well overdue. I think what's going to happen in this fight, I think we're going to see a similar game plan from Poirier. I think he's going to come out, he's going to manage that distance well, he's going to be popping the jab out, he's going to be moving in and out of the pocket, landing strikes. I think he'll eat some strikes as well, of course he will. Like I say, Alvarez isn't a pushover. Poirier will land leg kicks. I don't think he'll try and wrestle Alvarez, although he could potentially have some success there if he wanted to, but I don't see it. If anyone's going to engage in that, I feel like it's going to be Alvarez. But again, Poirier trains with some world-class wrestlers, some world-class jiu-jitsu artists. I don't think Alvarez is as good as a wrestler as like your Colby Covingtons and, you know, fighters like that. So I don't see him having too much success in the wrestling. I think that Poirier is going to do exactly what he did against Alvarez in the first fight, except when he rocks Alvarez this time, he's going to learn from his mistake, select his shots really well, select them appropriately. Don't punch yourself out, and just look for, rather than throwing an accumulation of strikes, a combination that's half of them are getting, 50% of them are getting blocked. He's going to be picking his right shots through the gaps, through his guard, and I think he's going to get that knockout. I think it'll be mid to late fight, and I think Poirier gets this done and he moves on to either a title shot or a number 1 contender fight, maybe someone like Kevin Lee, for example, that would be a pretty good fight. So yeah, I just see really good things with Poirier moving forward. Obviously, he does have to get past Alvarez here, but like I say, I do think he does that. I think it's times now, and right now he is the better fighter. Somebody has to win, and I believe that's going to be Dustin Poirier by knockout. So just to round up my bets for the night, I've got Dustin Poirier 2.5 units at -125. Then I've got Gadzhimurad Antigulov at -110. I've got 3 units on him, and I've got 3 units on Katlyn Chookagian at -137 as well. And that's all she wrote, guys. The usual quick message from myself. If you're listening to this podcast on the Newsome MMA YouTube channel, it's also available on the Newsome MMA website too, along with so much additional content surrounding all aspects of MMA. It really does have something for everybody on the website. We have betting advice, MMA podcasts, a brand new DraftKings section, specific content coming from Heavy Duty Fight Management. Also, please check out the sponsor of Newsome MMA, which is CBD Life UK. You can access these offers from my sponsorship by clicking any of the banners on the Newsome MMA website. You can also get 15% off your first order by using promo code Newsome MMA, so don't miss out on that offer either. And just a quick one before I go. For those that don't know, this will be the final fight card where all my bets are free. Don't worry though, it will not affect this betting podcast one little bit. You'll still get free content every single week. But I will be recording a special podcast on Friday just to explain everything in detail, so everybody knows what's going on and everybody knows everything that is going on. So be sure to subscribe to this channel. It's still new. We're still growing, and just make sure you don't miss that podcast. And that's it from me, guys. Enjoy the fights on Saturday night. Thank you and goodbye.